Manhattan penthouse, New York City. Victoria Sterling, billionaire tech CEO, found Marcus, the building janitor, asleep on her office floor with his 6-month-old daughter in his arms. She didn't know he'd been evicted that morning. She didn't know the baby had a rare heart condition requiring surgery. And most importantly, she didn't know that Marcus was the brilliant engineer who had secretly saved her company from bankruptcy 3 years ago, hiding as a janitor to escape a powerful enemy who'd destroyed his life. The decision she made in that moment to legally adopt them both as her family would reveal that the baby was actually her niece, daughter of the sister she thought had died, and that Marcus had sacrificed everything to protect her. In 30 seconds, 3 lives were about to intertwine in ways that would rewrite the destiny of an empire. The Sterling Tower on Fifth Avenue stood silent at 3 in the morning when Victoria Sterling returned from her business trip to Tokyo. The private elevator whisked her to the penthouse office with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a kingdom of glass and steel that had cost her everything except what mattered most: family, love, connection. At 38, she'd built Sterling Technologies from a garage startup in Queens into a $3 billion empire. But the price had been steep. No husband, no children, just a 10,000-square-foot penthouse that smelled of success and tasted of loneliness. Habit led her straight to her office, where the Macallan 1926, $60,000 a bottle, waited in its crystal decanter. The room was her sanctuary. Mahogany shelves housing first editions, 3 monitors showing Asian markets still trading, her father's portrait watching with posthumous approval from above the fireplace. She was reaching for the whiskey when she saw something that stopped her cold. On the Persian rug she'd bought at Christie's, a 19th-century masterpiece worth more than most people made in a lifetime, lay a crumpled form. Victoria approached silently, her Louboutins soundless on the thick carpet. It was Marcus, the building's night janitor, curled protectively around a baby wrapped in his worn jacket. Marcus Thompson was 29 and had worked in the building for 8 months. Victoria knew him the way executives know service staff: present but invisible, efficient but silent. She'd heard him mention a daughter once in passing to another janitor, but had never seen the child. The man had always maintained perfect professional distance, arriving at 9 sharp each evening and disappearing by 5 in the morning like a ghost, who cleaned their messes and vanished with the dawn. Now, in the dim light of her desk lamp, Victoria saw him properly for the first time. His dark hair, usually hidden under a Yankees cap during work, fell across his forehead. His face, normally composed in neutral professionalism, showed exhaustion that sleep couldn't erase. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, worry lines etched between his brows even in rest. His clothes, always clean if worn, told a story of careful maintenance of dignity against impossible odds. The baby, she couldn't be more than 6 months old, shivered slightly despite being wrapped in Marcus's jacket. She was tiny, with coffee-colored skin and delicate features that seemed almost translucent in sleep. A wheeze accompanied each breath, a sound Victoria recognized with a chill. Her younger brother James had wheezed like that before his heart surgery 25 years ago, before the operation that had failed, before she'd sworn she'd never be helpless in the face of illness again. Instinct made Victoria kneel beside them. Up close, she could see details that had always escaped her notice. Marcus's shoes, carefully polished but with soles worn through to the canvas. The baby's onesie, clean but patched with meticulous care. The diaper bag beside them, from which spilled the artifacts of desperate flight. Formula, diapers, and papers that told a story Victoria was about to uncover. She reached for the bag, freezing when Marcus stirred, instinctively tightening his hold on the baby. Victoria waited until his breathing steadied, then carefully extracted the visible documents. The first was an eviction notice dated that morning. The address hit like a punch: Rosewood Apartments, Hunts Point, the Bronx. She knew that neighborhood. a maze of tenements where hope went to die, where police only entered in force, where a white woman in designer clothes would last about 30 seconds after dark. The eviction notice was brutal in its bureaucratic coldness. 3 months' rent arrears. Eviction executed at 8 a.m. Personal effects placed on sidewalk. Victoria did quick mental math. Marcus made $15 an hour, maybe $2,000 a month after taxes. Rent in even a roach-infested studio in Hunts Point would be at least $1,200. With a baby to feed, medical bills, transportation, the numbers couldn't work, could never work. Beneath the eviction notice was a medical folder from Mount Sinai Hospital. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The words leaped off the page like blades. Hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Stage 2, palliation needed. Prognosis guarded without surgery. The report was dated 2 months ago. Pages of tests, evaluations, surgical protocols. The estimated cost of treatment was circled in red. $400,000. Victoria sat heavily on the floor, the folder still in her hands. $400,000. For her, it was the cost of a car she'd drive 3 times. For Marcus, it was a death sentence for his daughter. How did he think he'd pay? And why hadn't he asked for help? The building had employee insurance, but clearly it didn't cover experimental procedures. It was while replacing the folder that she noticed the laptop, partially hidden under a threadbare blanket. Curiosity won over discretion. She opened it, and the screen came to life. Surprisingly, not password protected, but what she saw left her speechless. The screen showed source code for Sterling Technologies' core AI system. Not a public version or demo, but the actual heart of the system, accessible only to her and her 3 senior engineers. Lines of code scrolled in a professional editor, annotations in perfect technical English. Victoria recognized the pattern immediately. It was the same elegant, efficient programming style that had saved the company 3 years ago. The crisis had come on a Friday night. A catastrophic bug in their flagship product had been discovered, one that would bankrupt them when markets opened Monday. The fix required completely rewriting the core architecture. 6 months' work, minimum. Victoria had been preparing bankruptcy papers when the miracle happened. Someone from inside the network had begun rebuilding the system from scratch, not just fixing it, but improving it, creating something so elegant it had become the foundation of their current success. In 72 hours of non-stop coding, the anonymous savior had saved everything. The mysterious programmer had signed only as Ghost before vanishing. Victoria had offered $2 million to find them. Hired digital investigators, combed through every log. Nothing. Ghost was a phantom. Now, looking at the code on Marcus's screen, the pieces fell together with mathematical precision. The dates matched. The style was identical. Even certain comments in the code used the same distinctive phrasing. Marcus Thompson, her silent janitor, was Ghost. But this raised more questions than it answered. Who was Marcus, really? Why was a programmer of this caliber mopping floors? And why had he saved the company only to return to cleaning up after them? Victoria stood and moved to the windows, looking out at New York sleeping below. The city sparkled with millions of lights, each one a life, a story, a struggle she'd never see from her tower. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number from memory. While sending data to her private investigator, Victoria watched mother and child sleep. No, that wasn't right. The baby was a girl, but something about Marcus's features, the protective curl of his body, screamed father, not mother. Single dad, then. The baby coughed, and this time opened her eyes. Brown eyes with gold flecks, hauntingly familiar. Victoria's breath caught. Those eyes. She'd seen them in every mirror for 38 years. They were sterling eyes. The baby looked at her without fear, with that solemn intensity of sick children who've seen too much too young. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, hoarse from sleep and illness, She made a sound that might have been, "Mama?" Marcus woke instantly, his eyes snapping open with the alertness of someone used to danger. When he saw Victoria standing over them, panic flashed across his face before being replaced by resignation. As if he'd always known this moment would come, he sat up slowly, cradling the baby. Lily, Victoria remembered from an overheard conversation, against his chest. The child buried her face in his neck, but kept those sterling eyes fixed on Victoria with unnerving intensity. The story Marcus told in the next hour rewrote everything Victoria thought she knew about her life, her family, and the cost of ambition. Marcus spoke quietly, sitting in the leather chair with Lily drowsing against his chest, while dawn began painting the Manhattan skyline pink. His voice carried the weight of secrets held too long, truths that had nearly crushed him. He wasn't just a janitor. Marcus Thompson had been one of Silicon Valley's most promising engineers, MIT graduate at 19, PhD from Stanford at 23. He'd worked for a defense contractor, Nexus Systems, developing AI for military applications. That's where he'd met Sarah Sterling, Victoria's younger sister, who had supposedly died in a car accident in California 3 years ago. The body had been burned beyond recognition, identified only by jewelry and dental records. But Sarah hadn't died in that crash. The truth was darker and more complex. Sarah had discovered that Nexus Systems was selling military secrets to foreign governments. She'd tried to expose them, but the company's CEO, David Chen, Victoria's current business partner and the man who'd helped her company go public, had orchestrated a cover-up. Sarah had faked her death with Marcus's help when she realized Chen would kill her for real. But she'd been pregnant, and the stress of hiding, of running, had weakened her heart. She'd died giving birth to Lily, making Marcus promise to protect their daughter, and someday find Victoria when it was safe. Marcus had evidence of everything. Encrypted files that proved Chen's treason, recordings of him ordering hits on whistleblowers, documentation of money laundering through Sterling Technologies without Victoria's knowledge. But Chen had connections everywhere. The one time Marcus tried going to the FBI, he'd found Lily's crib surrounded by photos of her sleeping, taken from inside his apartment. The message was clear. So he'd vanished into New York's invisible workforce, just another single dad struggling to make ends meet. He'd taken the janitor job at Sterling Tower to watch Victoria, to understand if she was complicit or another victim. When the company had nearly crashed 3 years ago, he couldn't let it happen. Not when it was Sarah's legacy, too. So he'd become Ghost, saving the company Sarah had been so proud of her sister for building. Victoria listened in silence, her world reshaping with each revelation. Her business partner, the man she'd trusted with everything, was a traitor and murderer. Her sister had been alive 3 years ago, had a child, had died trying to protect them all. And this remarkable man had sacrificed everything to honor a dying woman's wish. Her phone buzzed with her investigators' initial findings. Lily's DNA, extracted from the medical records, matched the Sterling family database. The baby was indeed Sarah's daughter. But there was more. David Chen had just transferred $100 million to offshore accounts and had booked a private jet to Shanghai for that evening. Someone had warned him. Victoria looked at Marcus, at her niece.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
At the life that had been hidden in plain sight, she made a decision that would change everything. The next 48 hours transformed the penthouse into a war room. Victoria moved Marcus and Lily into the guest suite while setting up what she called the web in her office. 8 monitors tracking every financial move David Chen had made over the past 5 years. Watching Marcus work in his true element was like witnessing a resurrection. The quiet janitor became a digital warrior, fingers flying across keyboards, eyes tracking multiple data streams simultaneously. He'd documented everything, terabytes of evidence accumulated during 3 years of patient surveillance. The problem was making it legal. The solution came from an unexpected source. Sarah had left a digital will giving Victoria full access to all her accounts and files. She'd legally recorded every conversation with Chen in her final months. The plan crystallized. During Sterling Technologies' annual gala that evening, in front of 800 witnesses, including senators and federal judges, Victoria would announce a special bonus for Chen, requiring his immediate biometric authorization. While he entered his data, thinking he was securing his final payout before fleeing, Marcus would trace and expose every crime. But there was a complication. Lily needed immediate medical attention. Her breathing had worsened. Victoria made a decision that surprised them both. She would take Lily to Mount Sinai for emergency treatment, while Marcus executed the plan. When he protested, she stopped him with simple truth. She's my family. Family protects family. At the hospital, holding her niece's tiny hand while doctors prepared emergency oxygen treatment, Victoria promised the baby that everything would be okay. From her phone came Marcus's latest discovery. There was another mole, someone on the board who'd helped Chen. The name shocked her. Her own CFO, Robert Winters, the man who'd been her father's best friend. The Rainbow Room at Rockefeller Center glittered with New York's elite, unaware of the drama about to unfold. Victoria arrived straight from the hospital, finding Marcus transformed in the Tom Ford tuxedo she'd insisted on buying him. No one recognized the janitor they'd ignored for months. The crucial moment came when Victoria took the stage. Her speech veered suddenly toward themes of family and betrayal, making Chen turn pale and Winters shift nervously. When she announced the $100 million bonus for Chen, the room applauded, oblivious. The moment Chen entered his biometric data, Marcus struck. Every screen in the room began displaying evidence. 5 years of treason in high definition. Then Sarah's voice, dead for 6 months, filled the room from a recording, followed by Chen's confession revealing not just the espionage, but the murders of 3 whistleblowers and the attempted murder of Sarah Sterling. The silence was broken by the arrival of the FBI. As they arrested Chen and Winters, Victoria found Marcus holding Lily, tears of relief streaming down his face. Justice, finally, for Sarah and all Chen's victims. The following weeks saw Chen's criminal empire crumble completely. Winters, trying to reduce his sentence, revealed everything. The murders disguised as accidents, the money laundering, the plans to eventually kill Victoria and take over Sterling Technologies. The revelation that Chen had been behind Sarah's need to hide only reinforced Victoria's determination to protect what remained of her family. Lily responded remarkably to treatment once Victoria threw unlimited resources at her care. The best pediatric cardiac surgeons in America took her case. Her surgery was scheduled for the following month, with an excellent prognosis. The first time Lily reached for Victoria and called her Mama, the billionaire CEO cried like she hadn't since she was 12. Marcus had moved permanently into the penthouse with Lily. Victoria insisted it was for security, but the truth was simpler. She couldn't bear the silence anymore. The penthouse that had echoed with emptiness now rang with Lily's giggles, Marcus singing while he cooked. He'd refused to let Victoria hire a chef. Real life replacing sterile existence. One evening, while watching Lily play with blocks on the Persian rug that had once been too precious to touch, Marcus showed Victoria a video message Sarah had hidden in an encrypted server. Sarah, 9 months pregnant and knowing she was dying, spoke directly to her sister. She asked forgiveness for disappearing, explained the impossible situation, and made one request, that Victoria would love Lily as her own and maybe, just maybe, see in Marcus the good man Sarah had loved. In the silence that followed, weeks of living together crystallized into something undefinable, not just gratitude, but something deeper, built on respect, admiration, and shared understanding of loss. The proposal came unexpectedly. 6 months after that night on the floor. Victoria had taken Marcus and Lily to her family's estate in the Hamptons, a place she hadn't visited since Sarah's supposed death. Lily, fully recovered from her surgery, toddled along the beach chasing seagulls with the energy of a healthy child. As the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky in colors Sarah would have loved to photograph, Victoria found herself on her knees in the sand. She hadn't planned it, had no ring. The words came out simple and true. She loved Marcus not from gratitude or duty to Sarah, but because he'd shown her what real strength looked like. She loved how he'd protected Lily against impossible odds, how he could have had millions but chose integrity, how he still checked on the other janitors at Sterling Tower even though he now ran the cybersecurity division. She loved his brilliance, his courage, even the way he still insisted on making coffee at 3 a.m. when coding. Marcus said yes through tears that he'd later blame on sand in his eyes, while Lily toddled over yelling, "Daddy! Mama!" in the way that made both their hearts melt. The wedding happened a year later at the Hamptons estate, with only 50 guests, the real friends who'd stood by them through the scandal. Lily was the flower girl, throwing petals with enthusiasm, if not accuracy, her dark curls bouncing with each step. Marcus wore the watch that had been Victoria's father's, a sterling man even if not by blood. Victoria wore her mother's dress, altered to fit, simple elegance over ostentation. But the real miracle came after. During the honeymoon in Japan, Marcus had always dreamed of seeing the Tokyo tech scene. They discovered Victoria was pregnant. Then, at the ultrasound, the surprise. Twins. 2 boys who would be born almost exactly 25 years after James's death. 2 years after the wedding. The Sterling Tower penthouse was unrecognizable. The once sterile spaces now overflowed with life. Toys scattered on Italian marble, Lily's drawings framed next to million-dollar art, family photos everywhere. The Persian rug where Marcus had slept that fateful night was now the favorite spot for the twins, James and Thomas. 2 years of pure energy with Marcus's eyes and Victoria's stubborn chin. Lily, now 4, had become the big sister every child would dream of having. Protective but gentle, serious but capable of making her brothers laugh with elaborate silly faces. Her heart was perfect now. The surgery a distant memory marked only by a thin scar she called her warrior mark. Sterling Technologies had risen from the ashes of scandal stronger than ever. Victoria had transformed the company into a model of ethical capitalism. Half the profits went to the Sarah Sterling Foundation for cardiac research in children. Marcus ran the AI division, revolutionizing the field with ethical algorithms that protected rather than exploited. David Chen had been sentenced to life in federal prison. Robert Winters got 30 years. During the trial, more crimes had emerged, more victims. The criminal network they'd built had collapsed completely, taking down corrupt politicians and complicit executives. One summer evening, as they dined on the terrace with Manhattan glittering below, Lily asked the question everyone had been waiting for. She wanted to know about her real mommy, about Aunt Sarah, who was actually her mother. Victoria and Marcus exchanged glances, then together told the story of a brave woman who'd sacrificed everything for truth, of love that transcended death, of how families were made by choice as much as blood. Lily listened solemnly, then said with the wisdom of 4 years, "So, Mommy Sarah sent me, Mommy Victoria, and Daddy Marcus, because she knew I needed both." The twins, too young to understand, clapped happily, spreading mashed peas everywhere. That night, after putting the children to bed, Victoria and Marcus found themselves in the office where it had all begun. The floor now covered with soft carpeting where the twins crawled during the day, the desk full of drawings and plans for the future rather than financial reports. Marcus revealed that he'd found more of Sarah's files, including videos she'd recorded for Lily for every birthday until 18. Messages of love, advice, and hope from a mother who knew she wouldn't be there but refused to be completely absent. They watched the first one together, Sarah radiant despite her illness, telling baby Lily that she was loved, that she would be protected, that Aunt Victoria and Marcus would give her the family Sarah couldn't. From his desk drawer, Marcus pulled out a photo he'd had printed from security footage of that night. It showed him asleep on the floor with baby Lily in his arms, Victoria standing over them with an expression of dawning recognition. They looked at it together, that moment of absolute desperation that had become the beginning of everything. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come back early from Tokyo? Marcus asked. Every day, Victoria replied, and every day I thank whatever force in the universe made me take that earlier flight, made me find you, made me find my real family. From the baby monitor came the sound of one of the twins crying. They rose together, smiling. No more cold floors to sleep on. No more sick babies without care. No more secrets destroying families. The penthouse that had once echoed with loneliness now rang with laughter. The empire that had nearly collapsed now supported thousands of families. And in the nursery, surrounded by toys and love, 3 children slept peacefully, protected by parents who had learned that real wealth wasn't measured in billions, but in bedtime stories, in tiny hands holding yours, in families that choose each other every day. Marcus had one last secret he revealed that night. He'd legally changed Lily's middle name to Sarah, and had established a college fund in Sarah Sterling's name that would send 100 kids from the Bronx to MIT every year. Because Sarah had believed in truth, in justice, and in the power of education to change lives. As the stars appeared over Manhattan, the Sterling-Thompson family, born from loss, forged in truth, united by love, looked toward the future. A future where floors were for walking, not sleeping, where heart conditions were battles you could win, where love triumphed over greed. And somewhere, perhaps, Sarah Sterling smiled, knowing her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. That love, in the end, always finds a way. Hit like if you believe true love finds us in the most unexpected places. Comment with the part that touched your heart. Share with those who need to know that even in the darkest moments, hope exists. Subscribe for more stories that show how a single act of compassion can change entire destinies. Because in the end, real billionaires aren't those who own everything, but those who give everything for the ones they love. And sometimes, the most unexpected decision is the one that saves not just a life, but an entire legacy of love.